For years, investigators were trying to solve a mystery. A young woman, intelligent, kind, well spoken, but with one problem. She didn't exist. No real records, no real past, no real name. And when she finally disappeared, it became one of the most disturbing identity cases ever uncovered. This story is about Suzanne Marie Sevakis, a girl whose whole life was stolen before she even had chance to understand it. In 1977, Suzanne was living with her mother, Sandra Wilkerson, in the United States. At the time, her mother was struggling with legal issues and instability. During that period, she was in a relationship with a man named Franklin Delano Floyd. Floyd was not just an ordinary man. He had a long criminal history, including theft and violent crimes, and he had spent years moving from place to place under different identities. When Suzanne's mother was sent to prison, Floyd took the children, not just Suzanne, her siblings too. But instead of taking care of them, he separated them. Suzanne was the one he kept. The others were abandoned in different places, left behind, while he disappeared with her completely. From that moment on, Suzanne's real life ended. Floyd gave her a new name, Sharon Marshall, and he raised her as his daughter, at least on the surface. They moved constantly, changing towns, changing identities, never staying long enough for anyone to ask too many questions. But when this part of the story gets disturbing, is that despite everything, Suzanne grew up to be extremely intelligent. Teachers described her as one of the brightest students they had ever seen. She dreamed of going to college, of having a normal life, but Floyd controlled everything. And as she got older, the situation became even darker. He stopped treating her like a daughter and forced her into a relationship, later presenting her as his wife. And honestly, this is where the story becomes very uncomfortable, because to outsiders, something always felt off, but no one knew the truth behind it. In 1990, Suzanne suddenly disappeared. Floyd gave different stories to different people. At one point, he claimed she had left him. Other times, his explanation didn't even match, and that inconsistency raised suspicion. Years later, Floyd was arrested in connection with another crime, and investigators began digging into his past. That's when they discovered that Sharon Marshall had no real identity before him. No birth records, no history, nothing. It was like she appeared out of nowhere. And this turned the case into something deeper. Not just a disappearance, but a complete identity mystery. Who was she really? It took decades before the truth finally came out. In 2014, investigators used DNA testing to identify her, and that's when everything connected. Sharon Marshall was actually Suzanne Marie Sevakis, a child who had been taken years earlier, a girl whose entire life had been controlled, renamed, and hidden. And honestly, when you think about it, the most disturbing part isn't just what happened to her, is that she lived her entire life without ever knowing who she truly was. While her siblings grew up somewhere else, she was trapped in a completely different reality. And by the time her real name was finally found, she wasn't there to hear it. And now here is another part of this story that makes it even darker. And honestly, a lot of people don't even know about it. While Suzanne was living under the name Sharon, she had a child, a little boy named Michael Hughes. And just like Suzanne, his life was also controlled by Floyd. He claimed to be the boy's father, but that wasn't true. And as time went on, things became more unstable. In 1994, Michael suddenly disappeared. Floyd gave different stories. None of them were clear, none of them consistent. Investigators later believed that Floyd had killed him. And years later, he was actually convicted for Michael's murder. When you look at this part of the story, it changes everything. Because now it's not just about control, it's about how far he was willing to go to keep that control. And we have come to an end of this story, and that was how Suzanne's life ended, and that was how Floyd's life also ended. Now, if you're interested in real cases like this, subscribe to the Unseen Case Journal and tell me in the comments, do you think anyone around her suspected the truth, or did he manage to hide everything that well?